Like any politician running for president of the United States, Joe Biden is making a lot of promises. They're all part of his vision for the U.S., but some have the potential to directly affect us here in Canada. So this morning, we're going to look at Biden's promises in 3 key areas and the implications on this side of the border. We'll start with the pandemic, which has forced the Canada-U.S. border to remain closed since March to all non-essential traffic as the U.S. heads towards 9 million cases of the COVID-19 virus. So what does he promise? Well, Biden is promising to expand testing capacity through a number of actions, including doubling the number of mobile and drive-through testing sites and establishing the U.S. Public Health Jobs Corp, which would train and deploy 100,000 contact tracers. He would also use the U.S. Defense Production Act to allow companies to ramp up their production of PPE. That includes masks and face shields. He also says he would invest $25 billion in developing a vaccine that would eventually be distributed to every American for free. Biden also says his plan would prioritize the protection of seniors and other at-risk Americans, such as those with disabilities. He also wants to restore the U.S. relationship with the World Health Organization, which you might remember Donald Trump withdrew from in May. And Biden says he'll implement a national mask mandate that would require everyone to wear a mask when they're around people from outside of their households. And he would use the full power of the White House to force governors to make that mandatory in every single state. So that's Biden's plan for tackling the COVID-19 crisis, which will need to happen if we ever want the border between our 2 countries to once again open safely. And speaking of the border, we also happen to ship a majority of our goods across it, which brings us to trade. The U.S., of course, is our largest trading partner in the world. So what would a Biden presidency mean for that relationship? Well, while he hasn't promised it outright, Biden has hinted at killing those tariffs that were imposed on Canadian steel and aluminum by the Trump administration. Those tariffs aren't being imposed right now, but they do still exist in record. Biden has, however, repeatedly promised to purchase Buy American policies, prioritizing U.S. companies and materials for infrastructure and clean energy products. As for the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement, which, of course, replaced NAFTA, Biden has, in fact, praised this deal, says he's not going to touch it. He actually worked on the creation of the TPP, or the Trans-Pacific Partnership, when he was the vice president, but Trump withdrew from that back in 2017. So Biden says he would likely bring the U.S. back into that deal, but he does want to renegotiate some of the terms first. So that brings us to our final topic, and that is the environment, which affects everyone regardless of where you live on the border. Biden will cancel the proposed Keystone XL pipeline. That would run oil from Alberta right through the Mideastern and southern U.S. He says the pipeline doesn't make environmental sense or economic sense for the United States. He also says he's canceling Trump's plan to drill in protected wildlife refuge in Alaska and pursue a global moratorium on drilling in the Arctic. And he would commit the U.S. to the Paris Climate Change Agreement and its emission targets. And Biden's also promising to push the countries involved to go even further with those targets. So shifting away from fossil fuels and onto clean energy, that is a staple in Biden's platform. So in it, he is promising $400 billion in clean energy innovation in the next 10 years, so into 2030. Central to that strategy is incentivizing U.S. auto manufacturers to prioritize electric vehicles and promote their usage. And his environment plan ultimately sees the U.S. becoming completely reliant on clean energy with zero emissions by 2050. Ending the Keystone XL pipeline, of course, would be a massive blow for the Alberta oil sands. They are already struggling. But for those concerned about the future of the environment and the global fight against climate change, a Biden presidency would likely be a welcome change for those who believe that. So right now, it is up to our American voters to decide whether Joe Biden will get the chance to make good on any of these promises. We'll see what happens next week. Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.